Myers. I'm with the Berks Alliance. We've been hosting these spotlight series on things of interest to the community, organizations that are doing interesting work, things that people need to know more about. And this is certainly what we're going to be doing today, talking about a very, very important topic and a very important project. I'm going to introduce the chair of the Berks Alliance, John Wydenhamer, who'll do a brief greeting, and then I'll come back and talk about the rules of the game. John.
So hi, everybody. John Wydenhamer here. And just on behalf of the investors in the Berks Alliance, which is a collaboration of anchor institutions in Berks County, just wanted to welcome everybody and thank our presenter today for the very important topic that we have teed up for you. But these spotlight programs that we've been doing that we started last year are really meant to supplement the monthly community conversations that we have. We're trying to bring additional topics that we think are of great interest to the community, to all of you. So thanks for participating. Keep supporting us, and I'll turn it back to Dave, and he can go through the logistics. But thanks for being part of this session today.
Great. Thank you, John. I'm going to go through the ground rules really quickly. We ask that you keep your cameras on because it's always nice to see real people, but that you mute your settings so that we don't have a lot of background noise, disruptive noise. We ask that you use the chat function in Zoom down at the bottom to submit your comments and questions. We'll collect those. When we get done with the program presentation, we'll go through the comments and questions. Given the size of the group today, we may just open it up and let people talk. We'll see what we get to with that. We do record this. We'll send the recording to everybody who's registered for the event. We also post it on the Berks Alliance website, and we will post it at BCTV. So I see that BCTV is present with us, so that's good news. They're going to get this topic. We have a very important topic, and I think even with the isolation that's occurring because of COVID, the issue of bullying and how it can affect lives and affect people is really, really critical. And we have somebody who is very experienced in this. We've got to get her and the Camel bus back on the road shortly. But Pam's saying that she has been so well respected that she has been doing programs like this in Europe, which is pretty incredible to know that we've got that kind of talent here in Berks County on this topic. So with that, Pam, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave, for all the work you do, as well as Mr. Wydenhamer. Thank you for doing this spotlight, because I think it's incredibly important to have a community that understands all the programs that are available. And I want to thank everybody on the call for taking their time out to learn a little bit more about the Camel project. Hopefully you've heard of us. It's just kind of hard to forget the word camel because it doesn't come up in everyday conversation. So, and hopefully today you'll walk away with a little bit more awareness of what we do and how we can help and what we are doing currently in our community. So again, I want to thank you for having us today. There are some leadership folks on the us as well. So what I did was I created a short PowerPoint just to frankly keep me on schedule, so we can go ahead and do something that's really functional and something that you can take away and walk away with. So we have one of our programs is called Live Better, and how we define what we're doing is we call it deconstructing the culture of bullying, because it is a culture. And unfortunately, in our communities, it's becoming more violent. So what we want to do is really talk about that in detail. So my quote I have are, people are not broken, but they believe they are. And that's kind of making it tough to have any kind of healing or really high functioning in your life. So today we're going to quickly cover some of the principles. We offer a certification, and then we'll go through the case study and what we want to leave folks with through the certification program are the tools and allow you to practice with a plan and some strategies to deal with stress and trauma. So I am the executive director and founder, and these programs are based on my personal experience as well as the current culture. I'm a certified practitioner of cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness, as well as counseling. Also, we wrapped in reputation intelligence, which is a program that I created about 20 years ago. And that methodology is to work with your personal reputation management. So over my 30-year career of working with career development as well as media technology. So I am a geek, I will admit it. And the geeks rule. That's all I can say. So all the every person I dealt with and every company I've dealt with in the past all comes down to personal reputation. The fact that you have one and you may not know what it is puts you at a disadvantage. So folks know you probably better than you know you. And to me, that was the deciding factor of creating reputation intelligence and using that methodology for the past 20 years. So the Camel Project, our mission is we're dedicated to assisting communities to change the culture of violent and unacceptable behaviors that result in trauma and abuse. And that can go the other way as well. Our philosophy is it starts with you, but it's not about you. So in order to really make a difference in our community, and a lot of people have a lot of grand ideas, curing homelessness and world hunger, but before we can do that, we have to chunk it down a little bit to make sure that we're balanced in what we're doing. So our efforts are impactful in a positive way on others in our community. So with the Camel Project, we have an advocacy component. And as Dave mentioned, we do have a 40-foot RV that goes out and to build awareness. Awareness is like, being invited on this Zoom meeting today. Then the programs we offer are the prevention piece, and then the elimination is when we have folks in a community who are all on the same page. And a lot of the trauma and a lot of stress is caused by, frankly, either misperceptions or a single lens in the way you see yourself and your community. So if we can increase that perception by introducing in a very non-judgmental way other people's experience, and you can grow as an individual, that will greatly impact the community in a very, very positive way. So we want to shift in culture, which includes mental and emotional and behavioral health. So just the core principles, we call it the 4 Ds of reputation. First is discover. Who are you? I'm not sure if you were ever asked that question. It's a really, really hard question to ask, and a lot of times people get defensive, and we look for these red flags and patterns. So cognitive behavioral therapy is a data-driven psychology. So you need to have data to evaluate emotions. I know that may not make sense, but sometimes the emotions who aren't healthy will always trump logic. So if you're emotionally not mature, and that doesn't go with age necessarily, but if you're not aware with some of these things we're talking about, and it's not a general conversation, you don't get it in school, and some people who really, really need it are just start to become offensive. They're offended, and then they start with more defense mechanism, which again, in and of itself is a red flag that your emotions may not be as balanced. So it's the first D is discover, then we define it, we set goals, we start using the model that we will show you and work through. We then develop it, we apply that model, and we intervene. So a lot of people are really good about talking about things. We understand we're decision makers, we have time management. But when it comes to implementing, sometimes we're not as good at that as what we think we are. So we actually help folks implement and develop these strategies and try to observe what you're doing to grow as an individual, but you do it with our support. And then at the final D is to defend it, to keep it, to monitor, to pivot when necessary, and just to go back to the data. So this is the outline of the 4D strategy. So we have a certified prevention specialist program. It's a 4-hour training, and frankly, folks don't really learn too much in an hour or even 4 hours. Where the social support comes in is the 12 months after the certification that participants receive. So usually folks come back about 3 times to me individually to help get over this hurdle. They hit an obstacle, some things are happening emotionally they don't quite understand. So we offer a 12-month continued social support so you can implement and develop the program and the platform and the strategies that we introduced. And again, this is some scary stuff to people because they've never heard of it. And it's such a stigma. Mental health has such a stigma. I mean, but think of it, you fall down, you break your arm, the ambulance rushes in and, they rush you to the hospital, they fix you up, and then they send you on your way to heal. That doesn't happen in mental health. That doesn't happen in behavioral or emotional health. Most of the time, the strategy, the status quo is to ignore it or just, walk past it. So when I talk to kids when we're out on the bus, because you can imagine everybody sees the bus and the kids come over and they talk about being bullied, and I ask them, what do adults tell you to do? And they say, oh, they tell me to ignore it. And I'm like, that is not a strategy. So we need to do better as adults so we can support our youth. So a quick outline of the overview of what we do. We want to build awareness, prevention, and elimination. And the modules fit in there. Discover is the awareness piece. And then we have the define and the develop in the prevention. And then we want to monitor it to make sure we're keeping at the level we want to be at. And this is something that it's not once and done. This is kind of a lifestyle change and kind of a, working on our habits and things like that. So again, some people don't like the stigma with doing that, even though investing in yourself or investing in your staff is the best bang for your buck, frankly. So just to cover some of the theories and assumptions we work with, again, yes.
I don't know if you want to be moving through the slides, but we're still on the first slide.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll reshare because mine was moving.
Oh, okay. Ours was stopped.
Interesting. Okay. Let me try this again.
Why don't you go up? Yeah, do it as from the beginning, do the slideshow. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you said something. I was rolling right along there.
Yeah.
Which one do you see now?
Just the first one, live better.
Interesting. Let me do this again. Let me stop. Let me do this. Let me go here. I told you, Dave, I'll take this program apart.
Yeah.
Pam, it may have been that you didn't hit the actual presentation. That was just the file saying what it was. You got to hit presentation.
Yeah, I think if you go back in and go to slideshow, start the slideshow, and then you click on each individual slide, it should advance.
Okay.
We're
So
not
what
going
do
to
you
make it
see?
start again.
What do you see?
Certification overview.
Okay, good. Okay, so that was the last slide I talked about. Do you want me to go back to the beginning or are we good?
Why don't we run back through really quickly and just so people can see what the other slides are.
Thank you, Jim. So this is our the Camel Project mission. We're dedicated. Yeah, I like this graphic, so I'm glad you guys got to see it. So So this is our mission, to assist communities to change the culture of violent and unacceptable behaviors. Our philosophy is it starts with you, but it's not about you. And we want to have a mental, emotional, and behavioral health. So we then have the 4 Ds of reputation intelligence, which is discover who you are, define who you want to be, develop it and implement it based on the plan, the model, the strategies, and the tools we introduce. And then, defend it, make sure this is not once and done. This is something that you need to always monitor, because we experience new things. We experience new stress. When things are thrown at us, we need to be able to react in a very, very healthy, emotionally mature way. And that will help us. And if we don't do that, there are flags. There's, insomnia is a red flag that something emotionally is going on. High blood pressure. It could be diabetes. It could be, losing friends. So those are the things you can self-evaluate when you understand yourself better, that you can then, regulate. So this is the certification overview, and this is where the modules fit into the awareness, prevention, and elimination piece. So some of our theories and assumptions are, it starts with you, but it's not about you. And the next one is, you can't give more than you had, which is kind of a simple thought, but if you want to hear this all the time, kids should be more kind, small kind, acts of kindness. Well, you yourself have to make sure you're being kind. And, this program will greatly deepen your ability to see and react in a very positive way, to be kinder. So I've never ran into somebody who says, I have enough kindness. Kindness is nothing I need to work on, and gratitude. But these are things that are not naturally, they're not inherited. There's no gene. This is something you have to practice and be aware of and give your attention to. If you want folks to be kinder, you yourself have to be kind. And if you've reached your capacity, then we are able to open it up a little bit. So we get rid of like judgment and blaming and victimhood, and we can add more kindness, empathy, and compassion. That's really how it works. It's not inherently or natural. Usually it's something we need to work at. You don't know what you don't know was a big one. You just don't know what you don't know. And status quo is not good enough, but you're worth the investing of this time and this energy to deepen your emotional and mental health. So we use our tools and methodologies. These are only 3: cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really a data-driven self-assessment. Some people get offended by their self-assessments. It's like, you're assessing yourself. This is not me judging you. This is going through proven methods of psychology, which work really well with actually depression and anxiety, which is a lot of what our communities are dealing with right now. We add in there personal reputation management and mindfulness, which both scares people a lot, but mindfulness can really mean whatever you want it to mean, which is very, very cool that you can kind of design that yourself. So in the Certified Prevention Specialist program, we start with Discover, and we look at ourselves to figure out who we are. And people have told me, no one's ever asked me that, who are you? And I know we get overwhelmed, we get busy, we get, we may have some physical issues, and we just get, we put ourselves last. So this is a program where we ask you to invest in yourself. If you're an employer, we ask you to offer this to your staff to actually make your business much, much better. So we want to, the awareness piece, which is the Discover module, which is we use the aggressive learned behavior of bullying to use as a model so it can be replicated. The platform can be replicate it into whatever is whatever your unique issue or plan entails. So we try to do a case study on the bullying behavior. We have a youth panel that meets once a month for students around the county who tell us what they need adults to start doing, and also what they need adults to begin doing. So it's interesting, some of the things that we talk about, and bullying is a big one. And they talk about their friends groups, which was a term I started using. So if you have a friends group and somebody's left out of it, it could be part of bullying. So we define bullying, and this is from the CDC. We use the Secret Service studies. We use the Workforce Bullying Institute. There's lots of studies out there. So fortunately, we did not have to do one. So technically, bullying is defined as an imbalance of power used to intimidate and repeated aggressive behavior. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if I agree 100%. I don't think it really needs to be repeated. So we use terms like acute. Did it happen one time? Or chronic? Does it happen all the time? We also use terms to gauge how in-depthful it is. So is it toxic? Is it tolerable? Is it positive? So we want to, find out if you are a bully or if you're the target of a bully. We actually drill down and chunk it down, because bullying's a large field. So we like to chunk it down and make it more personal, unique to what you experience. So having said that, we break it up into 3 groups. We break it up into the bully, we break it into the target, and then into the witness of the bullying. And each part has its own unique, and a lot of times we find you're actually all 3. There's a combination of all 3 depending on the circumstances. So we like to villainize the bully, and they need to be this and this and this. Where we found in our research, the bully, the target, and the witness are basically the same person. There was some kind of trauma, some kind of stress, and they're just dealing with it a little bit differently based on their experience, their influencers growing up. We feel strongly, and one of our hypotheses is that the bully is not born, it's created. Targets of bullying are not born, they're created. Witnesses are not born, they're created out of possibly childhood experiences or in the environment they are in now. So as much as we want to villainize any one of these 3 in this group, we have to understand and take some kind of ownership and accountability that our community has created these people, or at the very least has not put the actual training in there, or the understanding of what they're doing. So a target is a target with specific emotions and behaviors. So we don't villainize them, we want to explain it, because we don't do victimhoods and we don't do blaming, because that takes their power away to make adjustments to make sure their life is healthy. So we feel that bullying is an underlying issue of abuse. We think abusers, as well as the folks who are abused, all stem from stress caused by being either a bully, a target, or a witness. Violence, it turns to violence, it causes isolation, dysfunction, addiction, depression, and finally suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death between our folks between 10 and 24 years of age. Suicide is kind of the final thing. Although we feel all these can be prevented if we would really focus on helping the bully, helping the target, and helping the witness, that all these would be reduced or eliminated. So there's basically 4 types of bullying. Verbal is saying things, which is 74%, according to the CDC, bullying. Physical bullying obviously is the fist fights and somebody getting hurt. Social bullying is by far becoming one of the biggest areas, relationship, you know, when folks have, even adults have their friends groups and they don't allow anybody new in, that is considered part of bullying, or someone in that group is not included. Again, that is a form of bullying. So how bad is bullying? CDC estimates that 75% of folks who have reached the 9th grade has either seen or been the target of bullying. And then CDC adds another stat, 50 to 75% of the bullying incidents are never reported. So I had a side note with our youth panel. I asked them what to do if they see bullying, and they said, oh, you tell a respected adult. And we got into this whole big conversation of what's a respected or trustful adult. That was mind blowing. So I said, so have you ever, you know, say something safe to say, or don't be a bystander, be an upstander. Nobody knows what they mean actually, but we like to throw these phrases around. So I asked them, have they ever reported bullying to a trusted adult? And they said, nope. And I said, will you ever? And they say, no. They said, no. And I'm like, okay, why won't you do that? And they said to me, every one of them, there was about 9 of them on that call, everyone said, we don't trust adults to take care of this. And it really set me back. And I'm like, that is really hard to hear, but thank you for sharing that. And I think if adults in our community understand youth don't trust us to take care of this problem, I think we need some deeper work to be done. So according to the Workforce Bullying Institute, bullying in the workplace is about 70%. So 75 to 70 does not decrease after school. So bullying does not go away. It is a learned behavior, and is actually, allowed if people don't step up or step in. And I think some people don't know what to do. Some people don't want to open that Pandora's box. They're okay. This has become normal, which is not where the Camel Project stands at all. And also, according to that study, 61% of the bullying comes from the bosses down. So it's a systemic issue that hopefully we can start getting some attention to, that we can start some education around this, because it always leads to violence. And you can see it, how many shootings are in our streets every night in this country. So it's not getting better on its own. So status quo, in our opinion, isn't working. So I want to share this report from the Secret Service. They studied 41 targeted school violence in our country. Interesting, I just pulled out, it's like a 60-page, 70-page report. There's no profile on a student attacker or school. So it's not the urban schools, it's not the suburban schools, it's not racially motivated. There's no profile that they have found in these 41 incidents. There was nearly all of them experienced negative home factors, and almost all of them have been victims, and we don't like that word, but have been the target of bullying. So again, bullying is a threat, is a crumb that goes through everything that we talked about. That's why we focus on this issue, to make people understand a little bit more about it, to get a deeper understanding. Most illicit concerns from others, that means red flags, like, torturing small animals is a red flag that this student is struggling emotionally, and they don't quite know how to do it. My wish is not to talk to a parent of a 14-year-old that committed suicide. We really would like to stop that conversation. And they usually have multiple motives. So on the 67 averted school attacks, There was a history with law enforcement, so these students were not unknown. They all had bullying and mental issues. They intended to be suicides, and most school attacks and most violence in the workplace is intended to be suicide. There's also drug abuse as well as alcohol abuse, which goes back to our addiction, trying to cover up the pain of stress. Not a very good choice, but what seems to make sense in a person who is not emotionally stable. Logic is not the number one, and people try to, have a logical conversation with somebody who is emotionally not stable is not going to work and probably make it worse. So we also talk about ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. They were all present, and we go into that more deeply in the actual training. So just a couple more slides here. This is a slide that we created, which is not coming up. There it is. So this is your takeaway. So we all have emotions, and we focus on 5 of the most common emotions. We focus on happiness, anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. So what happens if visually we all have thousands of emotions, but we don't have a lot of time. So we stick to these 5. So add a trauma or a stressful situation, death of a loved one, a car accident, loss of a job, loss of a child, whatever that trauma, stress is introduced, if it's not dealt with properly, if it's not dealt with in a healthy way, using the tools and the strategies that we introduce, that will most likely turn to hate. And when hate sets in, we can still intervene. There's still opportunity to prevent that, but it usually always goes to violence, either suicide or some kind of violence against someone else or self-harm. Kids, do the cutting, the self-harm, that's back. I'm not sure if it's attributed to the COVID or not, but self-harm is back. For kids. It's also an adults covered up by alcoholism, drug abuse. Drug abusers are not born, they're created. They're created in a society that doesn't have the right support systems in place. Now, there's no absolutes in what we're talking about. It would be so much easier if they were, but there are some people who will never seek the help that is available. I've really never met a drug addict or a recovering addict that didn't want to have help, but couldn't do it because of the lack of support and services. And again, these are no absolutes. Not everything works for everybody, but I know and we feel strongly if we up the game of our community as far as our support, we remove the stigma of mental and emotional issues, and people are more likely to get help. Like if you broke your arm and you rush to the hospital, you get all these services and then you're left to heal. You go back for physical therapy. There is nothing in place for that, for emotional behavioral health. And that's really what we're gauging to. But to be clear, the Camel Project, as a cognitive behavior therapist, I am not a specialist in suicide. I'm not a psychiatrist. We are like the front line to be able to diagnose and to be able to get people to the right people. So if there's a suicide ideation, I know enough to recognize it. I am not qualified, and our program is not anywhere near qualified to deal with that type of thing. But if we can identify it, we can put a name on it, the person knows what's going on, and they are given the opportunity to really take hold of their mental health and have a clear path to do that, we feel strongly that that person is more likely to seek and get the help that they need. But again, this needs to be a community thing. So some of the outcomes of the certification, it'll help you discover a connection between emotions and behaviors, and they're directly connected. You will leave and define a personal plan. You will develop the ability to gauge yourself, self-awareness, self-regulation, self-understanding. That will create motivation and confidence. Deepen your empathy, kindness, compassion, and inclusion. If I could just talk about inclusion for a second, there's a lot of people that claim they're inclusive. We all usually have it in our handbooks, HR has made sure that it's right there. But to implement and act upon it is a totally different topic. So I don't think we ever have inclusion covered. I think it's something that is forever moving and digestible. And, if we all have the same understanding and we're on the same page, inclusion will be not as hard as folks think it is, because people are not inclusive and they think they are. So I was telling Dave before we started, this is not a topic that is for the faint of heart. When we're challenging limiting beliefs, when we're challenging inherited biases, when we're trying to change a culture, to shift it, it is not for the weak of heart. It does not have to be scary. And I believe that the Camel Project offers a program, a certification program for employers and businesses, which is not saying you're doing anything wrong. We're here to actually enhance what you're already doing. Schools tell me all the time, well, we have an anti-bullying program. And I say, good, we need 7 more to stop the tide. And then we need 7 more to actually change and shift our culture. So ultimately, we want to create guardians and protectors of others. But first, we need to understand who we are before we can effectively do that. I'm sorry if I talked really fast because I'm very passionate, as you could probably tell. But again, I want to thank you for your time. We are located at the Community Foundation building, and our website is Camel Project, and there's my email and my phone number. So once we go through the 4-hour certification training, that includes at least 6 to 12 months continued social support afterwards. We found most people don't learn much in an hour or even 4 hours, but it's that after social support where you can actually, I always say, stretch your legs and take a step in this direction of being emotionally mature and aware of your behaviors and your emotions, and you need support doing that. And if we get more people on the same page, or an entire company on the same page, we found that you are able to retain your staff as well as attract new people if you have a healthy culture. I'm a dyslexic, so when I walk into a company, the culture literally slaps me in the face, so I can tell what kind of culture it comes from the top and leadership of an organization. So, you may not think that folks are aware of your culture, but it's people really are. They may not be able to put the chronic versus toxic labels to it, but they will know they don't feel comfortable working in that environment. And I think as employers and community leaders, I think we really need to acknowledge that and make sure what we think is happening is happening. So that's pretty much my presentation. I do have a tendency to suck the air out of the room, so if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to talk to that.
Good. Pam, thank you. What a tremendous asset Camel Project is to our community and beyond. This is really very, very interesting discussion. Who normally would go through your certification program?
So we have 3 kind of target markets for the organization. So we deal with schools and community children's youth organizations. So we're dealing with a school. Most of the schools we deal with are in Philadelphia. They're very open to supporting their staff and their students. We feel it really important that the staff be on the same page. So we do a 4-hour training with the teachers, and then we go back to the school once a month for the entire school year to either meet with students or staff. So for example, we rolled the program out to the teachers, and now we're rolling it out to the students. Imagine the students know what we're doing. I mean, some schools want me to come in and do an hour program with, Mrs. Levy's 6th grade. Well, that's really, in our opinion, not going to help. It's just going to kind of confuse the students more, because after we leave, it's going to be the same culture. So we don't want to leave any harm either. The second is law enforcement and public safety professionals. So we do work with the Reading Police Academy. Police officers are more likely to die of suicide than in the line of duty. Again, unacceptable. No. We got to stop that. So we're offering, because we have a grant, training to the smaller departments in the county, which takes place next month. And then the third pool are business owners, because we're picking out the influencers in our community. So we're a small nonprofit. So if we get a company, like the Reading Police Department has 168 officers. If we get all those officers, that's going to like really resonate to the whole community, because they're influencers in our community. We're also targeting firefighters and EMTs who really take the blunt of the stress and need help dealing with that. And we think business people are very, very integral to the influence in our community. So that's why we were so happy that you invited us on.
Oh, good. One of your early slides, you said it starts with you, but it is not you. What do you mean by that?
So, a lot of people have very unhealthy egos sometimes, and it's always them. They need to take care of their kids. They need to take care of that. Look at that, abused woman who keeps going back to the abuser. So there's a lot of blame going on. So if it starts with you and we understand and you learn more self-awareness and you understand your self-regulation, judgment and blaming people will decrease. And we know that when it starts becoming about the community and not about you. Everybody's very set on decision making. I have to make a decision. We want problem solvers. We want to create expert healers. So when a tragedy or some kind of stressful event does happen, that you can walk through it, and not be as devastated. So again, it takes a community. So the more you are self-aware, and it's amazing when we start drilling into this, you don't really know who you are, because you didn't get it in class. You aren't inherently born with that gene. And as we start discovering it, who you actually are, which is scary, and sometimes the people who need it most are running away the fastest. But I think if we capture enough people to build that self-awareness, and you'll know it when you become confident, people are drawn to you. I say, do people run away from you when you walk into the room, or do they drawn to you? And again, I'm not judging you. It's just self-observation and self-assessment. And we give you that data and those tools to work with you so that we can discover who you are. And most likely, people know you better than you do, which to me is frightening.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I thought that was really interesting. You talked about reputational intelligence and that people know you better than what you know yourself. How does that work, and how do you deal with it?
So you have to understand, gender. Let's talk about gender. So women go, I don't care what people think about me. No, you do. You really do. And women sometimes are the hardest to get to understand that your actions and talk louder than your words. So again, as a dyslexic, sometimes your actions are so loud I can't hear your words. So until we really do some self-assessment, so one of the tools we use is we ask you to interview people that know you really well on a very, very honest basis. Preferably not somebody who's related to you, like a spouse, but your kids, anybody under 12, ask them what they think about you, and you will get the most honest answer. Or people, associates of you, asked in an honest way, this crazy woman named Pam wants me to interview you on who do you think I am. So we then talk about your likes, your dislikes. We drill deeper into your experiences. So one example, so I've always been afraid of mice, right? I see a mice, I'm the cartoon character, the wheel, feet going up on the table, screaming manically. So one day there was a mouse in our garage, and I was watching this thing going, wow, that's really kind of fascinating. So as I'm walking through my own process, I realized my mother made me afraid of mice. My mother was a crazy, afraid, scared of mice. I'm not afraid of mice, but I learned that. I inherited that. So as we start, now my fear of mice are out of the way. They're out of my closet. Now I can add kindness and understanding and love for more animals. It's amazing how if you say goodbye to one thing, you can add what you choose to the mix. So if you're around people who love animals, you're going to get a greater love for animals. If you work and understand people a little bit better, you may get along a little bit better and not be that bully and not be that target and not be that witness.
If I read this right, if I read the slide right, you talked about the incidents of school violence, and it seemed like there's people who are being bulliers have been bullied themselves. Is that accurate? Is that really?
Oh, absolutely. It's a learned behavior. Either someone in their childhood or maybe their dad was a bully. For example, I grew up in a household that was very violent, and I witnessed bullying. And then when I started school, I became the target of bullying. And then in 9th grade, I became the bully and committed a felony in school. There's a direct connection if we're willing to take a deep breath, get some herbal tea, maybe even light some candles, and we do a deep dive into who we are in a very safe, non-judgmental environment. And as we work with people and we create that environment, people are telling me they're experiencing joy and happiness, and they can find happiness in a good meal that they never really took the time or the perspective and lack of respect for themselves. And once they know they're worth it, they're not, an outlier. You have the opportunity to take control of your life. And people are like, I have insomnia, I can't sleep. That's a red flag. There's something emotionally going on. Please get the help that you need. I'm overwhelmed, I'm always so busy. That's a symptom, that's a sign. And once you can take control and you can have, take it by the ruff of the neck, how we always like to say we do, but we actually can do that and work through those things and live better. I mean, that's why it's called Live Better, because we get rid of all the trauma, stress, and as much as I would love to wrap my arms around everybody and not allow anything bad to happen, bad stuff is going to happen, but we can come out of it not devastated, not leading to heart disease or high blood pressure or stress or anxiety, and we can help other people through it then too. And imagine becoming a very supportive community. I know, wow, that would be so awesome, right?
Yeah.
Dave, can you dig it?
Can you talk a little bit about cyberbullying? With the advent of social media and the ability to be anonymous, people can be incredibly nasty about other people. What have you seen in terms of how cyberbullying works and how it affects people?
Well, and I'm not laughing. It's just mind-boggling to me. And I'm part of technology, and no disrespect to Mr. Wydenhamer, but I don't think we were very good guardians in shepherding out technology. It's kind of gotten, the cow's out the barn now. Come from Lancaster County, that's just something we say, but cow's out the barn now. So all we can do is help people understand that when people are lashing out on social media, it's more about them than you. And that's easy to say, and it's easy to hear. It's really hard to implement that, especially with kids. Kids actually are very resilient on this, because I asked them this and they was like, no, bullying's not really a problem, I just block them. And I'm like, wow, what an adult answer from a little one, right? Adults take it personally. They feel personally in charge to argue back. Sometimes I do that just to see if I can trigger people, which is probably not really nice, but if you're being stressed, if your stressors are raising, your temperature is raising when you're typing on your computer, again, that's a red flag. There's something going on emotionally with you. People tend to say things on a computer because you're not face to face. There is not going to be, most people will not say half the things they say on social media. Ignoring it is one way of dealing with it, but it's not going to help. Some people are never going to change. That's the way they were raised, raised with my father, who was a big racist. And if he would have ever got on social media, oh no. But yeah, so, they bring themselves out. And if you can logically, non-emotionally, data-driven look at their post, there is something incredibly wrong mentally with these people, and they're emotionally unbalanced. And hopefully they'll stay on social media. We also think that reputation through social media is a misnomer. If you have a good, feet on the ground reputation, the social media is not going to, take root or anything. So, if I hear something really negative about somebody I know, I will say, that's not true. I will back people up like that, but the good it does and the stress it causes you usually isn't worth it.
Okay, good. I'm going to open it up to questions or comments. Marnie, I'm going to ask you to repeat what you posted in the chat function. I've got one or two more questions we'll get to at the end, but go ahead if anybody has questions. Marnie, go ahead.
My name's Mamie. Were you referencing
Mamie,
the
I'm
book
sorry.
that I put? Oh, no problem at all. It's happened before. My partner's mom's name is Marnie, so we laugh about it a lot. But I took a sociology of mental health class from Dr. Carrie Smith at Millersville University, who's a medical sociologist, and she's incredible at what she does. So I could go on about that for a while. But one of the texts that she had us read was called The Happiness Effect by Donna Ferris, about the sociology of mental health and digital identity. And it really goes into what it's like to be raised with the internet and navigate your identity in a digital space, the isolation, what the anonymous nature to the internet does to you, and how it allows you to express things that maybe are more intense than you would say in person. And it really related to my mental health, and the author speaks about mental health. So if anyone's interested in, dipping into what it's like to be in Generation Z right now, it's a good read. So that's just a recommendation for this conversation.
Good.
And again, I don't think the adults really shepherded out the internet very well. Literally no boundaries or instructions. So I'll take ownership of that, some of that too.
Anybody else have a comment or question they want to make?
I'd just like to say, my staff at Big Brothers Big Sisters took a different program through Pam, but I just wanted to actually not only give Cam a kudos, but also give her a little bit of a plug. The trainings that she does, the amazing part about it is, the training we went through talked about our focus and even our strengths, weaknesses. She actually is very good at not pointing at everybody else to reveal, but also bringing her own life experiences into it, and actually kind of, if you want to say it this way, leading by example throughout the training. So if anybody has an opportunity to train with Pam, I highly recommend it.
Great. Good
Thanks, Jim.
commercial.
Big Brothers Big Sisters, they were great. They were great to work with, and they took all my abuse and all my assignments and all my homework and came back and shared really personal stuff. And we do post surveying and pre surveying, and we have some evidence-based data as well. And 81% of the people that have gone through our program have pulled out the tools when they needed to regulate themselves. So we're extremely happy with that 81% number.
Anybody else have any questions or comments before?
Yes.
ahead.
Pam, you know, I absolutely love everything that you do. We work together on different projects and you're phenomenal. So thank you for continuing to work on this mission. My question is, what are you providing to employers? Because I think in a lot of situations, employees may think, you know, it's my story over that other person's story. And how do you get to the bottom of what actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I love you too. So we will talk to the leadership and decide which program, like Jim mentioned, there is, you know, a couple other programs. Not, I won't talk about the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, but that was we could do like twice a month circle. We could sit down and talk. I bring homework and I bring work, and it's kind of a little bit of a peer pressure to participate in a very healthy way, but also we offer the one-on-ones. We do the certification training, which is a good launch. And again, you know, what you take away from a training, you know, people go away for the weekend and they go spend thousands of dollars and they come back and they're the same, you know, asshole they were when they left. So, you know, you got to work on this for more than just a 1 hour or 4 hour training. And I just swore and I apologize.
That's okay.
Sorry.
We'll edit it out.
Thank you. Edit that out, Dave. Edit that out. Sorry.
She's as real as it gets, let me tell you.
So I think one of the object lessons that I get from this is that somehow we're all connected to bullying and somehow we all have to own it and try to resolve it. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And taking accountability for it, even though it's not my problem, it's not my job. Yes, another flag. So, you know, when I challenge people, sometimes you won't like me at all. And then you'll love me. But yeah, it needs to be challenged in a way that's not judgmental. People do get upset with me, but you know, you either stay the status quo or you try to fix it. You know, making things better, usually not easy or fast or instant. So that's why we offer the continuing support after the initial training. Okay.
And one final question, then we'll wrap up. Probably the most important question I have: why Camel?
Well, you got to read the book, Dave. No, I'll tell you. So I wrote my story as a journal, and it was never meant to be published. But Not All Camels Are in the Desert is a book that tells about my life story. I share it it's written for 6th grade and up. It's in 1.5 alignment as well as 14 font, and it's a dyslexic font, so everybody can read it. My older friends thank me for the bigger font, but that's a whole other thing. So in the book, I tell how I grew up and got bullied. Camel was my nickname, but was not a term of endearment. So I'm taking the word back and I'm taking ownership. So I'm going to make Camel not a bad word, but a good word, and make it about supporting each other emotionally and mentally, but you have to figure it out for yourself first. Oh, thanks, Jim.
Getting an advertisement.
Love you. But yeah, you can't give more than you have. So you have to make sure you're equipped. If you want to, stop, world hunger, you have to be balanced and emotionally mature to lead the charge.
Great.
So I'm taking it back. It's my word now.
Well, thank you, Pam. This is just a really terrific program, really interesting, and great work that you're doing, not just for us here in Reading, but for apparently around the world.
Around the world. I know. The pandemic was awful, but Zoom, I think is staying.
Yeah, it's created opportunities that we never thought of.
Yep.
I want to thank everybody as well for joining us. We will send a copy of the video to everybody, and we thank you for that, and invite you to attend some of our future events. We have one tomorrow, as a matter of fact, where we're going to be talking about education, and a report done by a group called the Hargrove Foundation about some work that they've done with the Hispanic Center of Reading. We do try to do the community forums once a month. We try to get back on schedule with that, and we do these spotlights when they come up. I see Daniel's on the here. He's going to be doing a spotlight later on this year. And we're open to ideas and suggestions for the spotlight program. But thank you all. Really appreciate it. It was a good event. Very
Yes,
good
thank
event.
you all. Thank you.
And we'll let you all have the rest of your day back.